some friends that are going to, and there were modifications to agendas, something for being walked on, or is there anything modifications, just additions to personnel? We're good. So all items are as they should be in the consent, and the agenda is as it should be. And we have some special guests and some others that signed up. But first of all, we're very happy to see Steve Manley here tonight. And so Steve, come on up. From IPEI, our friends, and very grateful for their generosity to the Ithaca City School District. So Steve, go ahead.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks everybody for having me. I typically like to present on behalf of IPEI at the end of the school year, say June or early July. I was in Africa during the summer and was unable to do so. And Rob has encouraged me to go in public comment tonight because my lovely wife is home with 2 kids and we're due with a 3rd in about a week. So if my phone rings, I'm just walking out.
Leave your notes, we'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll just leave my note. That's why I sent them in advance.
Yeah.
For those of you who do not know, IPEI, the Ithaca Public Education Initiative, is a local 501c3 founded in 1996. We invite individuals, organizations, and businesses to make donations to IPEI, which we return to the Ithaca City School District in the form of various financial grants. It is our belief that the community support for our schools is shown through these large and small gifts made by anyone and provided to those teachers, staff, and school leaders who want to create amazing educational opportunities for our students. In 2018-19 school year, with the help of more than 400 unique gifts, IPEI provided funding to initiate or continue 42 projects and programs involving every school in the ICSD. These grant-funded programs are divided between our one-time grant of up to $500 and our multi-year grants of up to $1,500. Those second grants support teachers who invite experts and artists into a relationship with their classroom's program. In a continuing partnership with this district and in collaboration with sites of the Discovery Trail in Tompkins County, IPEI raised $30,000 in funds to send every ICSD elementary student on educational field experiences to these locations, where they spent time invested in curriculum-based educational activities. That's 4,433 students traveling on 250 trips during one school year. IPEI's role as a conduit of support from the Ithaca community opens our community's resources to our students. And we are proud of our 15 years planning, encouraging, and funding Kids Discover the Trail, or KDT Ithaca. Our affiliates, some of whom are here this evening, the Fine Arts Booster Group and Ithaca STEM Advocates, also raise funds from within our community and make the funds available to support all the arts for all the kids and STEM experiences and activities, making them available to students across the ICSD. Last year, the Fine Arts Booster Group made $12,000 in grant funding and scholarships available to this district's teachers and students. They repaired and donated 56 instruments and 12 accessories to the district's music programs through their wildly successful Play It Again Ithaca instrument donation program. And the Fine Arts Booster Group spent over $5,000 to print the performance booklets for every school's musical and theater program. Ithaca STEM Advocates, while they're undergoing some leadership changes this year, they remain an advocate for STEM inclusion in schools and classrooms, and for making various programs like Co-Bred Robotics, the TSA, the Technology Students Association, various math clubs, and Project Lead the Way accessible to all students regardless of need. IPEI serves as a recipient of funds to support these projects and others. And I look forward to sharing with you the next steps in Ithaca STEM Advocates program's growth and development. As we continue to turn these great educational ideas into reality for our kids, I'd ask your help in sharing our story, in sharing the stories that we make possible for your teachers and your staff in your schools. Help people know that they have an opportunity with IPEI, supporting us, an organization that, like your staff and your teachers, they engage and empower all the kids. IPEI's next grant deadline is tomorrow evening, and Fine Arts Booster Group has a deadline of October 15th. I have met, along with several volunteers, with the majority of school staffs in the previous weeks and look forward to seeing their applications and to sharing their stories with you in the coming weeks and months. Thank you for allowing me the space to share what we have accomplished along with you. I want to acknowledge here the work of and the volunteer leadership in all three groups, IPEI, the Fine Arts Booster Group, and the Ithaca STEM Advocates. Their leadership, their guidance keeps us available to support the ICSD's teachers, staff, school leaders, and students. And on the behalf of IPEI's Board of Directors, the Fine Arts Booster Group, and Ithaca STEM Advocates, thank you all for your leadership of the district. Thank you, Dr. Brown, and for your team, for your continued vision. And I want to thank the teachers, the staff, and the administrators who think of these great ideas and request support from us. Your work here and across the community makes our classrooms better for our kids, and IPEI is proud to stand behind you. Thank you for your time.
And Stephen, you mentioned the Fine Arts Booster Group, and I'm seeing a golden passport to the arts. Is that perhaps something that you would like to mention?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Steve, for mentioning everything about the Fine Arts Booster Group. It makes my job really easy now. So all I have to say is, here are the golden passports for the arts for all of you, including the superintendent. Thank you all for your service to the community. We really appreciate it. And because of you, all these great things happen in the community at ICSD. And this gives you free admission to all ICSD events, like musicals and plays and other things where you would normally have to pay admission. I always see Dr. Brown at every event, whether it's a sporting event or an arts event, so that's great. Always with his people, kids.
Yeah.
That's really nice. So anyway, and so these are in your pile of papers. I know you have quite a lot of them because of all the various things going on tonight, but please enjoy them, and thank you.
And someone else?
Alice and Julie were together.
Oh, okay, right. So very good. Well, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak that has not spoken? Corinne, anything? You got?
No.
Oh, well, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, this is an
Thank
open
you.
forum for, so if not, we'll have board responses in a second. But student reps have an opportunity to speak, and we'll go to Alicia first.
So, there's been a lot of like new and exciting things happening, but also some older news. So, in older news, we successfully participated in the climate strike with about 75% of our student body. And we were able to make it possible for middle schoolers to participate by having an optional field trip, so that was like kind of cool. Our new PE system is in full swing, no pun intended. And we've started a student-led health and wellness committee with a focus on awareness of struggles with mental health, specifically in teens and like young people. Okay. And we were also given support for Friday to have a workshop on protest music that went really well at the end of the day. It was great. We've had 3 caregiver meetings, one for new high schoolers, just so they like can get a feel of like what they're entering and like what it's gonna be like compared to middle school. One for juniors, just explaining like the PVET process and like everything they're gonna need to know in the coming year. And one for families, and it doesn't like have a name, but like I guess that's our version of like a PTA. So, oh, and most recently, we were able to send 4 staff members and 3 students to Minneapolis for the Progressive Education Network Conference, and we turned out to be the only school that sent students too. And Thursday, we go to our annual fall retreat, which is just a time for community building outside of like a classroom setting.
Great, thanks. Ithaca High.
Now that it's a new school year, that means like new opportunities for kids throughout the school to, in like IHS, to like explore out of the bounds of just like the classroom. So a lot of teachers are deciding to like bring kids on like field trips. So like the government classes went on a field trip and visited the city hall and town hall, listened to representatives on the Common Council, the county legislators speak about their experiences on the board, and did a scavenger hunt around downtown Ithaca. And also like a lot of junior class organized by the junior English teachers will take most of the kids to a performance of the play of 12 Angry Jurors, a book that will be like a play that will be delved into later. And these are just like a few of the multiple trips, and it's like a great opportunity for kids to expand their like view of learning.
Also, last week it was Spirit Week for IHS, and starting from Tuesday, IHS students dressed up following the theme of Twin Day, and on Wednesday it was Decade Day, Thursday Meme Day, and on Friday it was Red and Gold Day, which for showing the spirit. And the Spirit Week ended on Friday with a school-wide pep rally, and they had great performances from students. The football team won their homecoming game over Walkingston 20-14, and the boys varsity soccer team won their division and will head to the stack semifinals and sectionals.
Alright, so already some of our competitive clubs are preparing for tournaments. So the IHS Brain team is getting ready for another great year and giving a chance for new members to get some experience by attending a novice tournament this weekend. Model UN is getting prepared for their first conference of the year to Hilton in November. And math team is also preparing for their first NIMAL test next Tuesday. Code Red has started their build season and is also preparing to compete in several upcoming tournaments. And seniors are preparing their journey through college applications with the help of IHS counselors and staff, starting this Thursday, October 10th, where Financial Aid Night will take place in Holt Auditorium. And on October 15th, IHS is offering the opportunity to go to the TC3 College Fair, where over 50 college representatives will be there to answer any questions.
Outstanding. Thanks, Ithaca High. Board responses, anything, Ann?
Yes, I just want to say thank you to IPEI and Arts Boosters for all the great things you do and for all the innovations that you help to stimulate in the district. So thank you.
Sean, go ahead.
I want to wish LACS to have a phenomenal time on their fall retreat. As a former LACS teacher who spent many years in the cold cabin, I hope it's warm weather and that you all are able to have a good time doing the community bonding that I know takes place. My first time meeting, I wasn't here last week, so welcome to the student reps. Looking forward to a phenomenal year and having some engagement as we talk about some of the issues as well. And if it wasn't said last week, I'm hoping that you'll also be willing to give us your thoughts and your input as we talk about things, because we need as many student perspectives as we possibly can, so I hope that comes. And I want to echo Ann's statements. I've had the pleasure of working with Julia Taylor at the History Center in the 8 Square Schoolhouse, and I know that to get significant funding from IPEI to make that trip happen for all of our 4th graders in the county, as well as in Ithaca, and I know that's one of those hands-on experiences that both my Ithaca College students who oftentimes volunteer and the 4th graders talk about in great deal, and I've been very impressed by the History Center's approach to make that far more culturally affirming and exploring different notions of identity, of gender, of race and ethnicity, and so I think it's the kind of innovative work that the community can do. And our fine arts boosters, I look forward to seeing folks at any number of musicals and theater productions this upcoming year, so thank you for your work as well.
There's a lot of free concerts, you know. There's a lot of concerts and outstanding performances. It's always a pleasure. Anything else?
I want to ask Kiana, The modern, what are the top modern day protest bands?
Oh, I wasn't even.
You weren't there, oh, okay, bummer. I wanna know what's current, so.
Yeah, I heard about all the students that.
Pat, anything? You good? Good. Very pleased to hear and know that both the football team and the soccer team won concurrently in the same cosmic space, right? So that's outstanding. Steve and I was at a PTA meeting last night out at Enfield, and there was an IPI rep there who I know very well. But so IPI reps go out to the PTAs, and I encourage the board liaisons when you're going out to the schools, just make sure people know that when they're looking. Do we need resources? What can we do? What can we do to try to make this happen? And we always say, for gosh sakes, do you know about IPI? There's resources available. Forgive me if I'm wrong, Steve, but your goal is to give money away, right? Right.
Anytime Rob sees me, he
Right.
reminds me,
To
of
say-
this is my goal.
Right. And it's the goal of IPI.
Our goal is to give away the money that, some generous people give to us, and so
Right.
we
And
want to make
it's-
it available.
It's the mission of IPI, and it's red and gold grants, small grants, larger grants, and it's really, and there's a grant committee, and so don't hesitate to reach out to IPI. It's a great organization. It's a great organization to support for those of you out there looking for an outstanding entity in this town to support what goes on in the classroom. That is IPI, and that is their mission, and it's been a great, Stephen, it's been 20 years?
Yes,
20 years. It was 20 years last year, 20 years.
it's always 20, we just
Always
don't want
20.
to get older.
So,
Pretty good with 2 decades.
it has only grown, and so certainly encourage folks, it's, obviously the district has some resources, the community has some resources, but IPI is certainly one that is only a benefit to really affects kids directly in the classroom. And so I would certainly thank you, Steve, for all your work and the IPI board and everything that IPI does. Fine Arts Boosters, we look forward to the combined concerts coming up sometime soon is when?
August 23rd.
October. Right, that concert it's really an outstanding free concert. Choral, band, and orchestra all come together on one night, and eventually, either the beginning, the end, and the middle, they all get together. And it's really, it is a sight that if you have not seen it, you should. And I expect that there will be no empty seats. It's an outstanding concert and tremendous amount of talent on display. So, and it's coming to Culp Auditorium near us. Anything else? Moira, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make, their goal is to give money away. This morning I saw Steve at the PTA Council, and he also talked there about where they get a bunch of the money that they give away. And so
Right.
one of the things that they have done for quite a few years now, and a major fundraiser, is the adult spelling bee. And Steve announced this morning that the date for that is March 1st. He also announced, and I think this is important for people to know, that that IPI is waiving or funding a team from each of our schools, so that a team, which could be teachers and parents, some combination of that, or staff, that every school will be able to have a team participate at no entry fee. So they should start thinking about that now. And then Steve also mentioned that last year they started another fundraiser that they're going to repeat this year, and they hope to double their attendance, and that's a disc golf tournament. And you gave the date. When's that happening?
It's gonna be on May 16th.
May 16th. and it will be at the disc golf course at
On Cornell's campus.
Figures Cornell would
We need a
have.
good team.
Right, disc golf.
Yeah, gotta get a team.
Right after the last snowstorm.
That's why we didn't do April this year.
All right, thanks, everybody. We'll move on, and thanks, everybody. Consent agenda.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Chris and Pat. The items are, as you see, not a huge list, but we do have personnel reports. Part of that. Any questions, comments? We good? We are 7, correct? We have, as I count, Eldred and Nicole had to step away. So all in favor? That is not quite everybody. It is Rob, Pat, Ann, Aaron, Chris, and Moira. Those opposed, those abstaining. I abstain. Sean abstained. You can say it, Rob, it's all right. We're doing Sean's again. Okay, all right. It's an old thing, it's an old joke, but what is not an old and what is not a joke, Dr. Brown, this is your time, Dr.
Oh,
Brown.
thank you for the opportunity.
That was a segue, Dr.
That was a good one too. I'll be brief. I too wish to express my appreciation for Steve, Alice, and your organization. This is my 10th school year, but I'm still a recovering Virginia administrator. And where I'm from, folks like you don't come to the board meeting to give us stuff. They come to ask for things. And every year you come and you offer support and money. And I'm going to always express my appreciation for your support. And more specifically in helping us start the Aspiring Educators Program. I met with young people today, and they're super excited, and they know how that got started, and that's because of your support. So thank you for that. The other item, last year I didn't announce it soon enough. This year I'm going to announce it very soon. The Team ICSD Day will be on December the 10th. So write it down now. December the 10th is Team ICSD Day. That's also the day of a board meeting and our first commendation ceremony. So it's going to be a busy day for our community as we celebrate our school district, but more specifically celebrate the amazing feats of young people and adults in our community for that first commendation ceremony. And we'll have a board meeting, so I hope folks stay around for all of that on that particular day.
Especially the board meeting.
Especially for the board meeting. But on Team ICSD Day, we have folks to wear cardinal or gold and actually put on social media all the things that the school district means to them. And we do a hashtag Team ICSD. So that's coming on December the 10th, and you'll hear much more about it, but I also want to highlight our commendation ceremony, which we hope to be the biggest and best one ever. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Always the biggest and best.
It keeps growing.
ever.
It keeps growing.
So thank you, Dr. Brown.
Yeah.
We will move on, and we're doing pretty well. We're going to move on to school district business and a couple of resolutions that are long time in the making. And I'll look to policy or like Sean to talk about these.
We have 2. The first ones up are the code, the safety plan, and is that what's up first?
Yeah.
So, to the fellow board members, the process, what we're going to try to engage in is similar to what we've done for all policies. There was a hearing that was done, someone help me, September 24th, right, on September 24th, as mandated by New York State law. The safety plan, you have a print copy here. The idea would be that we would, if folks agree and want to do so, pass it for a first reading and then bring it back up to the board meeting on the 22nd for a final reading and adoption that evening. Mike Simons, one of the administrators who has been responsible in helping comprise some of this, had some small things to catch that we should make sure we edit. For example, making sure that both of the weapons definitions were the same on each page, and a couple other items. We had some feedback from a couple of caregivers and parents. I don't believe we had any feedback at the hearing. I was not here for the hearing, but the idea would be, again, first reading and then adoption on the 22nd of October. Is the way in which we will move this. This has been, I'm looking at Lily and I apologize, about a year in the making for trying to revise this plan, and we know it's not perfect, but trying to keep us in New York State education legal mandate. Is that fair, Lily?
And passing it in a couple of weeks, we're not in violation of any.
We're already a little late.
All right, so a couple of weeks isn't gonna matter.
Right, we're already a little late. But we want to make sure that board members have a chance to actually go through it and know what they're putting out there as well. And most of the things we've already, or some of the things we've already been in practice. We're just finalizing what we've been doing.
So Sean, the resolution as it appears in the agenda is not gonna be moved now. This is just gonna be a first reading, won't be a motion.
That's my recommendation.
And we always do what Sean says. For our
Policy committee recommends.
Right, exactly. Thank you, Chris.
It gives the community additional opportunity just to ask any questions.
Right.
So once this gets passed, how would the community access this information?
It's on our website.
Okay.
And I imagine it would also be funneled through many of our buildings as well, that our building leaders would become aware of the safety plan.
And it's attached electronically to the tonight's agenda for anyone.
Right, yeah, but I mean, once it passes.
Via the website.
The next one will be a little different, we'll talk to you about that in a minute.
So I'll move the ICSD safety plan for first reading.
Second.
Second by Pat, second by Moore, sorry. Motion by Pat. Any questions, comments right now before we vote? Not hearing any. All in favor for the first reading? That's everyone. So we will see it again
On the
next week.
22nd for adoption.
Yep.
We're gonna do the same thing with the Unified Code of Conduct for a first reading and up for adoption on the 22nd, should we choose to do so. This has been, as many folks know, we also had a hearing on the 24th. This has been a project that has been probably close to 2.5 years in the making. We recognize, we have received some letters from parents and caregivers. The board recognizes that this is, in many regards, not the type of code of conduct that we want. It is also the reason why we created a Code of Conduct Advisory Council, which will spend this entire academic year to revise and make suggestions to the board and hopefully present the board with a new version of the Code of Conduct. I believe the date is either June or July of 2020. And so what we're passing is different than what we currently have. It is also a legal mandate that we pass the Code of Conduct. That will have a little bit wider distribution to each of our buildings and a plain language version as well as being on our website. It will be in effect for this year, but we're also aware, for example, there's language that we know that we want to change. There's ways in which we want it to be a little bit more restorative. There's things that we know that we want to engage in debate. We also want to be in line with what New York State law asks us to do. And so we'll spend the year trying to be innovative and revamping that. And all board members are welcome to join us for the Code of Conduct Advisory Council.
Right, open to all.
And community members as well, please.
Right.
So to be clear, the safety plan is voted, it's done.
Nope.
No,
Safety
so
plan is a
we're
first reading.
revamping to vote.
Safety plan is a first reading. We'll vote on October 22nd for adoption. At this point in time, there is not a plan to go
Right.
through and do a revised version of the safety plan.
That's what I meant.
The Code of Conduct will be a first reading adoption on the 22nd, and we are spending a year to revise the Code of Conduct in different ways. As a board, we can have a conversation about the safety plan. There's a lot of opening or new research that is coming up about what we should be doing, but that's something that we need to spend some time and put on an agenda item. That's a far larger project and far larger item than what we have here.
Right. But we cannot wait another year to pass a unified code of conduct. We need to pass a code so then we can edit and make improvements.
That's correct.
Do whatever. And that will be an ongoing process every year, but really need to adopt it every year. That's correct. It really is a series of policies.
Yes, and so that's the other item that I'll send out to all board members. The Code of Conduct will replace a number of policies, many that are in the 4,000 series, the 5,000 series, excuse me, some that are in the 8,000 series, a number of them that we haven't been discussing and talked about. The same thing will happen, for example, with the safety plan. It will eliminate our need for a fire code or fire drill policy as well. So I'll work with Mike to make sure that everyone has exactly what that looks like and what we're talking about, what will be changed, so you can take a look as well. We've been talking about the 5,000 series for about a year and a half, so we're open to, that's it, maybe 2 years, let's keep moving.
Second. So, so we're gonna move for a first read.
Resolution to approve unified code of conduct.
Second.
For first read.
For first reading, sorry.
Rick. Moved by Chris, seconded by Moira. So we good? Anything else right now? Questions? All in favor? We will come back. That's everyone. And now, we're on to meatier subjects and something that does have a time factor, and that is the audit review and adoption. And Amanda is going to help us out with that.
Help us make sense of the very complex document.
So we have one slide, although there are a lot of attachments to this area of the agenda for the public, for the board. This is data that was shared, and we did a deep dive at the audit committee this past week.
Last Wednesday,
right, so just
several board members were there and
that's
were
right,
there.
and community members, so please, if there's anything that you'd wanna contribute, that would be great.
Can we contribute something first from
Sure.
Ann? And this is an opportunity to talk about certain legislation that was passed by the governor.
Well, I guess.
And
that's
as you remember, in the meeting, we talked a lot about
That is true.
the budget and the balances and the fund balances, and it would be great if the governor would sign a certain piece of legislation.
And we are happy to report that the governor, in fact, did sign the legislation that permits the Ithaca City School District to establish a health insurance reserve. So this is legislation that we worked on for over 2 sessions. It did not make it the first session, but it made it through the second session. And I'd like to really thank Assemblywoman Barbara Lifton and Senator O'Mara, both of whom sponsored the bills for us, one in the Assembly, one in the Senate. And we'd also like to thank the governor for signing it, because it really will make a huge difference to the district in terms of stabilizing and securing our health insurance now that we are self-insured. And one of the reasons that you segue to it here is that as part of the audit, there are some part of the audit that demonstrate the benefits, the long-term benefits for the district in terms of future liabilities.
That's right.
So,
Well said, Ann, and you should certainly be congratulated for your
Oh,
work.
Ann, it was
You, Eldred, and Brad made many trips to Albany.
that's right.
And we-
Teamwork.
Exactly, and it is a team effort, but Ann, you certainly were, never wavered in your confidence that a politician would actually do the right thing. I am always dubious of that.
And also,
yeah.
they did sign the other 2, there were several other reserve bills.
Right.
Only 3 went up at the same time as, Russ and 2 others, but the other 2 also did pass and get signed at the same time.
Right.
I don't know about the other ones, I don't think they've gone up to this desk.
But certainly the advocacy committee was established, frankly, when you came on the board, and it's been, it is a fruits of the labor of that committee. So again, thanks to the boards, and because it does make a big difference, and we will look into the differences. But the audit is something that we do every year. This because we have to, but it's also very useful to find out what did we actually spend money on, the community's money on over this past school year.
Absolutely.
So, man.
So I'm gonna actually step up to the board, and Dr. Brown, thank you so much for the assistance with the slides, I appreciate it. There's only one. There is a full slide here. It actually gives you a 10-year overview. This can also be found in the audit report itself at the end of the audit. The year that we're gonna be focusing on is sort of this column right here. So an audit, again, as Rob said, sort of, it does an analysis and a deep dive into the year that we just closed, right? So the year that we just finished with the fiscal year 2018-2019. Starts on July 1st and it ends on June 30th. And so what the auditors do is they sit with our treasurer, they sit with our business office, they sit with staff and ask questions about, do you think anything was fraudulent? How did we manage our money? What are your processes, right? And so they meet with lots of people and they review our financials. And they literally will do spot checks, they'll pull files and folders and look into them. They will compare our books to what this, what our computer system says with the printed copies that are in a physical file. And so they do a real deep dive around sort of what our revenues are, which is the money that we're bringing in to fund our operations, and then our expenditures, the money that we spend out to do business, right? And so the revenue pieces, this is pretty much, no surprise to anybody. Our tax base continues to grow, and this is an amount that we actually put into our budget documents. We sort of know that in advance of what our levy will be based on our tax cap calculation, and we do go up to the maximum in that. And so you'll see, that sort of predictable growth from year to year. The tuition payments are things that we bring in. Oftentimes we'll charge other districts for the services rendered in schools that are in Ithaca, in which they might charge tuition for, as we bring monies back, and then recoupment of funds for that. Other revenue, local sources. This one I do want to draw your attention to. I think that this was something that we had discussed a number of times in finance. We actually had a presentation. School districts have rules around the way that they can invest their funds, right? So when we bring in this money, you can use banking institutions with very strict rules and procedures around that. We analyzed those banking institutions and our relationships and the way that we were investing our monies in those banks. And you can see here that we sort of were plodding along, and then last year when we did that work, it actually did bring in higher levels of interest that we ever had before. And again, it was the same amount of money that we were investing, obviously with a little bit of growth, but we increased our interest revenue from about $89,000 to almost $700,000 in 1 year. And so we're working with a company who knows all the rules and regulations around school districts. And so using an institution with something like a NILAC or a NICLAS, which invests your funds and is able to get higher interest rates, we anticipate that we'll be able to continue to grow that, given the market, obviously, and those things change as the time goes on. The revenue state sources, that's something that we've always been watching, right? That's our state aid line. And if you look here and you do the math, it's sort of tracking at about 2.5% increase each year. Ithaca does not get bumps in revenue. We got the bump down for the GEA, but we've never gotten that bump back up again in terms of our state funding sources. The federal grants, that's there, the federal sources, and this is what comes into the general fund. There's a special aid fund that actually houses our monies from some of the title grants, but these would be some of the federal sources that we get in our general fund monies. And then some transfers in. You'll notice there was a one-time sort of oddity here, and that was because there was monies that we used for capital projects that actually remained unused. And so you have to bring that back into the general fund. So that's a one-time moment. And then the miscellaneous revenues are things like our rebates from BOCEs, so services that we paid for that we didn't use, they give that back to us. Rentals on our facilities, rentals on our buses, and so that all comes together, as well as like reimbursements from like Medicaid programs and things. So that's our revenue, and as you can see, we've been sort of progressively moving forward with our revenue, and you want to see sort of your revenue realized, so what have you brought in, sort of those real revenues compared to what you spent, right? And so the good news is this year we actually brought in more revenue than we spent in terms of expenditures. And we do build in cushions into our budget that if that was not the case, you can never go over the amount of money that you are allowed to spend. So the good news was we asked for money, we had built-in fund balance above this amount in case we were to go over, and we ended up spending actually less than our real revenue. So we were able to put some monies into fund balance at the end of the year.
So, I'm gonna jump quick.
Sure.
So I just think it's important for us to realize and to recognize that while we have particular revenue we're bringing in, that the team at various levels is working extremely hard to make sure that we can find as much additional revenue as possible.
You are absolutely
right. So trying to find ways to invest the district's money in different ways that not all districts, either for a number of reasons, but are as active as this district is trying to do so, and that's not guaranteed, or fighting diligently for a revenue fund to be able to make sure that we can put money places. That's an important part as we go out and have conversations with our community about how we're funding various programs or not funding various programs, that we're working diligently to make sure we can increase as much revenue as possible and not always at local tax dollar expense.
That is correct. That is correct, and we'll, again, continue to do that. Every time we go to a conference, every time that we're talking to colleagues, we're trying to discuss those opportunities for us to be able to enhance our revenue, right? So the expenditure pieces, this is essentially, again, a large overview of sort of how do we spend our money, and they're put into particular about 10 categories here. I want to point out a few things as we go through this list. The Board of Education, they're volunteers, right? All of you, if you didn't know it already, you're not getting paid for this job, I know. So thank you for your service. Thank you for your free service. This actually does funds the district clerk's position as well as all the costs to do elections. We have multiple polling places all over our communities, and so we want to make sure that those are funded, and so that is what is showing up. That is not salaries for anyone that serves as a Board of Education member, and I want to just make that clear.
Thank you for clarifying.
You are so welcome, Chris. You're so welcome. Administration, if you take a look at the line, this is actually captures executive team, principals, and directors. That's in that line. Instruction, regular school day. That is the cost of doing business to educate our young people in terms of teachers and support professionals, including teachers, TAs, any kind of field trips that go along with that, the support during the regular school day, equipment, supplies, right, that's captured in that. Community service is an odd one. It actually is the management of our pool. It's the lifeguard service. So for some reason that's pulled out. It always has been. The transportation piece is self-explanatory. Operation and maintenance, O&M stands for operation and maintenance of the plant. I just sort of did that so that we could fit things into the column nicely. Data processing unit, that's all technology, right? So that's a lot of the BOE services that we utilize for technology as well as our in-house team. Employee benefits, as you can see, that's sort of pacing upward. As is instruction, these are often driven by contracts and also just the cost of doing business in terms of health insurance. That's a major part of that employee benefits line. And that continues to rise even though we're doing, again, our due diligence to try to control those costs. That's also things like employee retirement and teacher retirement systems. So when you work in education and you work for a school district or for a government entity, one of the benefits that New York State gives you is the ability to be able to actually generate retirement monies, right? So that's put aside on your behalf as a savings.
Pensions.
Pensions, exactly.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed pensions. Overfunded guaranteed pensions from the state, that's right. The insurance is exactly that, our insurance. Somebody slips and falls, somebody trips, there's an accident in one of our vehicles, that's the cost of that. Special items that are unclassified is typically things like athletics and co-curriculars. Debt service, we'll be watching that. You notice here it sort of went up and then it went back down again. This was that smart bond that we went out for. We got some funds for that there. And so the debt service line, we will be watching. We want to make sure that we never go over 7% of our total budget for that, because that is what, when we went out to the community for the capital project, that's where those funds will lie in terms of when we borrow. Okay, and then interfund transfers are for a few things. It's typically for a pre-K program. So we use the general fund and we put money into the pre-K. We also fund some facilities, our capital related expenses. And then this coming year we'll have, when we do the audit for this fiscal year, one of the interfunds that we'll also see is transfer over to school lunch fund to support some of the benefits work there. And then you get a total expenditure line. This bottom line here would show you, if we were to go, over and back, you can see that, we sort of ended the year with a little bit over $1 million. Last year it was a little tighter. We had some good years here. We had some years where we actually did use fund balance, which is a savings account or reserve account, to actually fund the operations. So we dipped into our savings accounts to be able to fund the operations in those years. And then we made a correction.
Capital elimination adjustment years.
That is correct.
We had to override the tax cap.
That's right, and so we corrected that when, after this year, we corrected that by going over the tax cap in these years.
An accounting maneuver by the state of New York, they would announce the state aid runs for the various districts and for that amount, and then on the bottom they would list the GEA and take it back. We appreciated that they would list it separately, but, so again, it was a huge hit to the district over, there's the negative years, but before that, it was still in place.
The
going back.
deduct,
Right,
yes,
right.
as they call it.
I just wanna say one thing about the revenues. When you talk about state revenue and you lump it all together, that's reimbursement also for things not foundation aid, right? So if you were to
Correct.
pull out that foundation aid, that has not been a 2% increase.
No.
That's
No,
been
no.
closer to,
40,000 bucks.
That is correct. So that state sources is the foundation aid, which is a formula, right, that does not change very often for
For us.
us. It is also made up of other state revenue sources, like you said, the reimbursement aids, things for when you pay for BOCES, you get money back for utilizing BOCES. Transportation aid, building aid, right, you have to spend the money, and then for us, you get just around half of it back. For other districts, they get very high rates, 80 cents on the dollar, 90 cents on the dollar. We are not that district. We're mid-range.
And as we move forward for the next couple of years, our capital project that we are undertaking will be listed in this under our debt service, is that correct?
That is correct, and we will also see the reimbursement aid on the revenue side. So when you do capital work and you go out for debt, there is aid that comes back to the district for doing that work, and so the revenue side will also show that. So we will be managing that debt service line in terms of how much we can go out each year to get funding to fund the projects. We'll be managing it with the aid that we're getting back, right? And then as debt falls off the schedule, meaning we sort of essentially paid off the debt, right, for those particular borrowed units, we'll be bringing more monies back on.
so with that revenue though, that comes back from the state reimbursement for building aid, that will be like staggered though, like it'll be like a
Correct.
year off?
It goes over a course of about 15 years, so it'll be
We'll
chunked
spend
over
it,
the course of time.
And then that revenue will be like.
Exactly, so we're tracking both of those to keep them steady, right? And we do that with a fiscal advisor group, you know, this is not done, you know, in an office somewhere, this is done with lots of people contributing and managing and sending us reports.
As part of the finance work sessions, and
That's correct.
it's all public, folks can come. Board members certainly can come and hear how it will be put together along with the facilities, work sessions that talk about what in the world we're going to build, and we're gonna talk about that in a few minutes.
That's correct.
Other items, Amanda, other questions?
That's just the brief overview. Obviously, there's lots of documents online. We also audit extra class, which is the co-curriculum pieces, and their budgets. And so those have laws in New York State on how they are managed. So there's extra class reports as well, along with our reports on our financials for the district.
And as part of the audit, there's a management letter, certainly an executive summary, but the management letter, and certainly they do report whether we cooperated with the audit, and they reported that we certainly did so, and our books are open. We are a public entity, and so if there's anything that is not what it should be, we're glad to know that. And they provide recommendations on how our fund balances should be arranged and how to where things should go, and they also talk about upcoming auditing changes of what the state or the feds are looking at as far as rules and regulations of how this district is managed and run. And so they, part of the management letter, they did not find any material issues that they could report, correct?
Correct.
And overall, was certainly a clean bill of health for the district as far as how things are being managed. I deal with audits in the real world, and it's right. So you want a clean audit. You don't like items that come up because then you have to deal with them. And, but a clean audit is a very much positive. And Amanda, as part of the health care reserve, it's going to be there's going to be another fund balance added to our list.
That's right.
Going forward.
So all the fund balances and the reserve accounts, right, are listed in the audit. There's
Right.
quite a lot of detail. There's even descriptions of them. What will happen in the next year, right, for the audit that will close for this fiscal year, there will be a new blurb about the health insurance reserve, as well as how we fund it, how do we draw from it, all of those pieces, and then it will have the starting amount, essentially, which is the amount of money that we have right now that we received when we left the cooperative, the TST Health Insurance Cooperative 2 years ago.
Right, so we're gonna talk about that in finance, how we're going to, clarify the books a little bit, right? Okay, go ahead.
So 2 questions. One about that, or question and comment. Does that mean that the insurance reserve will go into operation on July 1st of 2020, or will be opening it this academic year?
It will be this academic year, but it will show up July 1st, 2020, or probably in September, October, because it's the report of the prior year's activities.
And I know folks may know this who are far better in literacy of finance than I am, but this is a third-party audit. The district does not audit itself, right? That there are folks who come in and audit our books and then let us know it as a third-party outside entity. And so.
And we put out an RFP for those services every now and again, which is a request for proposals. We ask auditing firms to submit proposals to us, we analyze those, and we do hire an outside entity for that.
Our internal, external audit. We also have external audits. Right. And then we have the comptroller that visits us from time to time.
And then there's us in the business office who daily functions, we audit things all the time.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
just have one quick comment, is I think a lot of times people in the community wonder, like, where does all the money go? Like, how do you guys spend the money? Where does it go? And I have to say, it's a really lengthy and thorough report. So if you're curious, it's there for looking through it. And the audit committee, there's the chance to, hear the explanations too, so that's really helpful.
And every item in that audit report has backup data. Please, as Rob said, that information is all there. This is based on real numbers, real expenses, real checks written, right? We have all that backup data.
And then ask where does the money go, and it's pretty obvious where the money goes. It goes to people. I'm looking at 94, 60, $96,000 of the budget is people, basically. And the capital expenditures for all that we're gonna do, that again, that's 7%. So 93% of the budget goes to people and keeping the lights on and doing a few other things. But we are in a people business, Dr. Brown. Yes, we are. Truly. And we have to build some buildings to make sure that we can do what we do in a great environment. Anything else, Amanda? Questions? We do need to adopt this because we have rules and regs that we have to adopt that audit by
October 15th, and it has to go to a number of state portals, and it has to be submitted.
That's why we're doing it on October 8th. Any other questions? Are we good? I need a motion. Actually, the resolution is here. Chris, you're the finance chair.
No,
glasses on.
Audit's its own beast. I'll move the audit review and adoption.
Second.
Thanks. Any other questions? We good? All in favor? That's everyone. Good. So good. Thanks, Amanda. Thank you.
We accepted
Right.
Yes, we've accepted the report as it was given to us.
Right. And part of what Amanda does is what we're going to talk about now. It is the capital project update with an introduction to campus construction. And good to see you, gentlemen.
See you again.
And Paul.
Yeah, that's it too. I've met most of you before, but I'm Kevin Clark with Campus Construction Management. I'm Vice President there. On your project, I'm the project executive. I'm joined by Kim Gray, who you probably see a lot of around school. And he is our senior project manager, will be throughout the project. So we were asked to come in tonight and just give you a little introduction to campus construction management and basically what is a construction manager. We're going to be back, I believe, October 22nd for your next meeting to give a project-specific update and talk about where we are in the process and where we're going and what kind of timelines look at. So this is basically what's a construction manager. So what we do is manage, and we manage construction capital projects, and we do this for a living. That's about all that we do is construction management of K-12 schools. And as managers, we're going to be involved in your project from start to finish. And in our case, the start was pre-referendum before we even voted and helping to put things together. We coordinate the efforts of all the team players, the architects, subcontractors, the contractors. All the flow of information goes through us. We manage that flow, we distribute that flow to the parties. We use online systems that will have access to different people, so they can get relevant information about the project. So what are we managing? We're managing the cost of the project or the budget. We're going to manage the schedule. We're going to manage the contractors and the quality control that goes along with that. And all of the documentation that's needed on a project, we're going to manage that and maintain that and keep that as a matter of record. Another big part of what we're going to do is to minimize the disruptions to your academic activities. You all are very good at educating kids, but we want to keep that operation separate and as worry-free as possible from the construction activities that's going on. Because a construction project, a major capital project like this can be pretty disruptive. We're going to do that through communication. That's going to be the biggest part of that. We're going to work with the district and the teams, understand your schedules, know where we can and cannot be, make sure that our contractors are adhering to that. As we get those kind of schedule information, we're going to include that in the bidding documents so the contractors know, that when regents are, that we cannot be in these particular areas of a building during regents testing. And so all that stuff is built into what we put out as the front end documents for the contractors when they bid the project. But ultimately what we're doing is we're your advocate, we are your representative. We like to kind of think of ourselves extension of your team. So, just brief overview of how we get structured here. The triangle at the top there is the way that we always start things off. We're working for you, Tetra Tech, the architects are working for you, but the three of us work together as a team. We've been in meetings. We started on this project in August of 18 is when you selected us to be your construction managers, and we've been working as that top triangle there since August of 18. Lots of meetings, lots of different things that we do. So how are we going to be structured once the construction hits, or even as it is now? It starts with the project executive. That is my role. I work out of our main office in Pittsburgh, but I'm down here an awful lot for meetings. And then underneath is the senior project manager. That's Kim Gray. Kim is going to be full-time, all the time dedicated to this project. Once we get construction, he's the guy that you see a lot. We're both supported by our estimating department. Many of you have met Jason Hannon, who comes to a lot of our meetings. Jason prepares the estimates together, but he also does a lot of the pre-construction planning that goes into this before we even hit the, before we even go out to bid. So he's a big part of our support staff. Once this project gets in full swing, and once the construction starts, we'll have a field manager. Other contractors call them superintendents. In our world, they're field managers because, again, they're doing management work. But they're kind of the boots on the ground person that is going to be out there working daily with the contractors and just keeping them coordinated. We'll have a dedicated administrative assistant working with us on the project. And then as more projects come into effect, we'll probably be adding more people, project managers, as we start doing multiple phases at one time. So again, continuous involvement. That's kind of what we do. We started with the pre-referendum. Back in August of 18, we started doing that, meeting regularly at Tetra Tech's office through a series of meetings that we call OACMs, the Owner, Architect, and Construction Manager meeting. And on some of those times, the financial people are involved. And certainly Amanda is kind of the point person on this as we go forward on it. But we helped put that plan together on what is the scope of the project. But big thing that we do and contribute to that is the cost estimates. You know, what is this really going to cost you? So that as you as a board are making decisions on what should go into your project and what shouldn't, you at least have reliable numbers that you can count on that are going to be able to help you make educated decisions on, well, yeah, we'd really like to have that, but, and can we afford it? So we try to, we're constantly reworking those numbers, as different ideas come across the table, and make sure that you have good information to go off. We did on this project too, work with your communications team in helping to put together a communications plan, and there's still some of that going on now, even as we're into pre-construction. So we do a lot of that. We put the schedules. What's the schedule going to look like? We talked about this being, it's a $120 million referendum, and it's going to go over a number of years. What does that look like? What kind of construction is going to happen when? Just in the big picture during pre-referendum. How long is this project going to extend? And as I mentioned, the public information campaign is part of that. So we've got that behind us. We've had a great successful vote with a really good turnout and really positive community support on that was pretty impressive. So now we've moved into a pre-construction phase. So a lot of that is more of the same. So we're doing cost estimates, continuing to have lots of different meetings. But our cost estimates, just as the architect, Tetra Tech, when they come in and he talks about his different levels of design that he does. The first designs that they do on a project are a schematic, maybe a 10,000 foot level, before everything's really on paper at that point and not really designed. The scope's been determined, but what's it going to look like? So they start with that. We put an estimate on that. Well, if something's out of whack, we need to pare back here or whatever. And then after they get into a little more detail, they're in a design development stage. And the design development is maybe a 5,000 foot level. And again, you're refining things, we're refining our estimates, bringing those to the team at the OACM meetings and talk about that and review that and reconcile it with the architects, make sure the architect and the construction manager are looking at the same project, looking at it the same way. And then ultimately where we are now in phase one is a construction document. Now, this is the ones that have gone into SED for approval. They're in there now. And these are the same ones, the same drawings with some minor modifications that will come out of SED that the contractors are going to get. So we do, that's a very important part of this, and just kind of making sure that we got, no red flags are coming up, and so far that is all, everything seems to be getting stride pretty well on that. We also do scheduling during this time too. You start off during the pre-construction stage with a master schedule. This isn't really a construction schedule. There's just one big line that says construction is going to go from 2020 to 2021. But this is the different tasks that have to be done and managed during the course of pre-construction. When are we going to go into SED? That's always a key date that we have to have. And the architects have been great in hitting those dates that that we have the different ones. When are we going to get estimates? When are we going to reconcile? So that master schedule tracks a lot of the tasks during the construction phase. Kim has spent a lot of time in facilities meetings with your groups, meeting with building administrators and the like, to kind of go through the plans with the architect, with them, understand some of these disruptions that we talked about. How can we minimize those so that we can still, get a project built, but you can still, have a fully functional school that's not going to be too much of an impact on them. What else do we have there, Tim?
Getting the contract.
Yep. Oh, and then, so the next phase, we're going to be very close to, we'll give the update next meeting, but the next thing that happens is that we're going to go out for bid. And we will, the contract, or the architect has prepared the drawings. We have worked with them on the specifications for it, with the front end documents, all those things. We'll manage that bidding process, we'll recruit bidders to bid the project, it's all public advertising, but we'll go out and try and get as much bid participation as possible to get you good pricing as it comes back. So when those bids come in, we'll receive them, we'll analyze them, we will talk to the low bidders of the projects, make sure that they are de-scoped properly, that they have everything included that they're supposed to have, and they have a clear understanding of the job. And then we make a recommendation to the board to, this is who we think would be your, the lowest bid and most qualified contractor to do your project. We come to you with a recommendation for that.
And the board consistently has to vote on, yes, we're going to do that project at that, we're going to do these projects at that, accepting that bid. So the board and the community has input all the way through this as we do pre-construction phase and construction phase. And as we just talked about with our phased construction over a period of years, we're always going to be in pre-construction phase, and once April comes, we're going to be in construction phase. And so we're going to be doing to the board and the community, we're going to be involved in two of these at the same time.
Right. I will add, obviously, we're in phase 1 pre-construction. We're in phase 2 pre-construction. But phase 1 is going to immediately be going to construction, and phase 2 will be in pre-construction. And you're constantly going to have that going on as we go in phases. There could be
3, 4,
yes,
etc.
yes.
So it's a pretty complex task, actually. Thankfully, we're at the pre-referendum phase. We went up all of it at once. We did not stage that. We took a risk somewhat to just, okay, we decided with your help, 100 million wasn't quite enough, so for what we want to do, hopefully looking forward. And so 120 million, and said, frankly, community, will you trust us to do this right over this next period of, really, next decade? And with your help, and Paul, I think it's, as you know, as you have observed and others, it's been a good process, and frankly, much improved from 07.
And like Amanda did say, we're also key on making sure that you stay within your quotas as far as how much you're spending.
In debt service.
In debt services. So we do have a thought process to add as we start to add these phases of, okay, it's gonna cost this much, so we can start to appropriate the money.
But one of the key things through this whole project is, and particularly in the pre-construction, is we're developing plans for phasing plans, site safety, logistics planning, things like that. We're not doing that in a vacuum. We're not being the ones creating it. Paul is a huge part of that, and as I mentioned earlier, they meet with building administrators, work with the OACM group. So that information is coming to us, and we're kind of putting it down on paper for you, but it's a very interactive.
We are doing facilities work session, we're doing site visits, we were at South Hill last week. What is this going to look like, and what is the terrain, and how best to deal with South Hill in phase 2 as we get ready to tear apart the high school.
And I certainly will add it as we're going, just phase 1 and phase 2, I'm starting to be relevant of things that are gonna happen in phase 2 and where they are, because we do have overlaps of, we got 2021 for phase 1, we're gonna have 21-22 for phase 2. So there is some overlapping construction components that need to be realized.
Rob, this is also the reason why for the community we created a capital project community advisory council. I know I'm mentioning another advisory council, but our facilities meetings, last time we undertook a capital project would go 3.5, 4 hours trying to make sure that we could get our minds and our hands around everything that was taking place. Part of the reason why we created this advisory council was to help engage in these very conversations that you're having with building leaders, that you're having with Paul and our team, that you're having with Amanda about the finances, and sort of to be able to give us multiple places that we can engage in these conversations to make sure the board is making the best decisions. Some of it ends up happening to be deferred maintenance whether we want it to or not. Most of it is talking about new construction and new educational spaces. And so the more times that we have to talk about what these spaces look like and how we're going to finance it and create it is helpful. And so we did not have this service last time, which was a mistake, right? So this is a huge benefit for us to be able to have folks to come talk to make sure that we're staying on task, on budget. Let me rephrase that. on task, below budget.
Well, our mantra before was on time and under budget,
Yep.
but we pretty much got that.
We did.
But we did have a construction manager, it wasn't campus construction, so enough said.
So then ultimately, as we've been talking about, we're gonna go into construction. This spring, construction is gonna start, and that's when the real work that people is gonna, that's what people are gonna see, and that's what is gonna impact people the most, is once that first shovel goes in the ground. Once that happens, as I said, we'll have a full-time field manager on the project. He's gonna coordinate the contractors. He has weekly meetings with the contractor foreman to go, and they kind of focus on a 2-week look-ahead schedule, make sure that, people aren't tripping over each other, make sure that people aren't where they're not supposed to be. And then we're gonna do all that coordination with the contractors. We're also gonna be doing a lot of reports. You're gonna see a monthly report from us. And that's gonna have the budget information. We're gonna manage the budget as we go along. And we're gonna show you, we'll always have in real time where you are. How much you have authorized in change orders, what change orders are out there pending, what might be an issue that might come up. We'll assign a dollar figure to that. Just to kind of present a worst case scenario, and so we can track that. You'll have that information. We keep it in real time. You'll get it at least monthly, or whenever you want to have it, but we'll send out monthly reports. Depending on what the district wants, we can also send out weekly updates. That's been a great thing for us. A lot of photographs, people take those and put them on websites, but we can tailor that to
That will be,
whatever you're looking for. But we take a lot of photos.
That will be requested.
Yes, and I know that there's been conversation about putting cameras up as well,
Yep.
in managing that. So all that kind of thing is gonna be going on with lots of reporting. We will, with the contractors' payments, and also any change requests, all those things would come through us. We would vet all of that before they get presented to you for you guys to take a look at. Things that are owner enhancement types, you may tell us to go out and get us a price on this. As long as we're in here, we might want to consider doing this, can you put it together? So the architect draws a little something up, we go to the contractors, get pricing on it, bring it back to you and say, is this really what we want? We're also monitoring safety compliance. We're not safety inspectors. There's kind of a distinction there in our roles as construction managers. But we manage the contractor's safety. Are they complying with their own safety policies? And
Right.
they have to
OSHA,
provide us with their
right.
they have to provide us with their safety policies, and there's a whole kind of legal distinction there on what on how we can enforce that. But again, just kind of wrapping this up, what we're doing is on behalf of you. We're your team member. We want you to be able to come to us anytime. Rob has suggested that we come in and do a quarterly, I think is what the last we talked about, quarterly project updates. But certainly anytime if there's an issue, we can come in at any time. Kim's local, and so he'll be here.
For the whole board and the community quarterly, you're gonna come on the 22nd to really, tell folks how we're gonna tear apart the guy school and other areas around the district in this first phase. And we are obviously still waiting for state ed to approve, but we're looking, one will sign stuff for us, which I never thought he'd do, but he doesn't sign this, but Albany actually stepped up, so I'm hopeful that Albany will step up, get that done, and then we're looking at hopefully getting bids up for.
All indications from Chris when I was just talking, still on. You
Yeah.
never know with SCD, but so far, we've been pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, they've had comments come back, and so it's tracking
There's
well.
processing.
We hope to be out and hope to be receiving bids before the first of the year.
Right, exactly, and that would position us well for the work getting started.
In March.
Kim, on your schedule, you have
Yes.
schedules, so.
I like the fact that we're going out before everybody else typically goes out. It gives us a cushion in case there is something that goes wrong with SCD. We're doing well.
It's been a lot of work and by many, so on the board, administrative team, community to get this started, so we look forward to it. Other questions for where we're going?
So in phase one, we're having work done at some work done at almost every building. Will there be work being done at the same time at different buildings.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
How did you separate the elementary schools? Because all the elementary schools are getting secured entrances,
We flipped them.
half in one summer and half in
one
another.
summer,
Yeah.
half in the other, and that was a,
Well, one already has them.
that was
Right, right,
elected
right.
by, in that voice, in which
Right,
way to go
okay.
with that.
Uh-huh.
And then high school itself has got 2 summers worth of work too,
Uh-huh.
as far as getting the work done.
Anything else? Well, we won't keep you tonight because we're gonna see you again soon, in a couple of weeks, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Communication's a good thing. We look forward to lots of it. And Sean, we have a few more items, actually kind of doing well.
Yep.
For those who were wanting to go home, but Sean, go ahead, we've got a.
We have policy 5422, which is the school immunization policy. This is the policy that the policy committee rewrote with the directive from New York State law, the change in New York State law, the mandate that came down. We had a simple change. We've already voted on a first reading. There's been no change in language since the first reading. And the part that you can see that may be different than some school districts is that the medical exemption final decision is delivered by Dr. Brown, by the superintendent, in consultation with the district physician. And so we've had multiple conversations and dialogues about it. We've been engaged with any number of conversations, both with our lawyer and folks across the state. And this is the recommendation that the policy committee has come up with in consultation with our legal counsel. And I want to reiterate that the policy committee is not choosing to modify this policy. This is New York State law that we are being in compliance with.
And I'm seeing a second reading.
This is second reading and adoption this evening.
I'll move policy 5422, immunizations for second reading and adoption.
Second.
Second by Pat. Any other comments, questions, discussed at the last policy work session quite a bit?
It was discussed thoroughly at the last policy work session.
And I would add that today we got 2 emails from members of the community in support of this policy, in strong support of this policy. One of whom is an immunologist.
We appreciate that. It's not
Expressed
often.
her appreciation.
Right. We appreciate that. So, if there are no other questions, moved, seconded, all in favor? That is everyone who is here. So that's it for regular business. Other business, we just have one item, I believe. Delegate voting, designate voting delegate to New York State School Boards Association Annual Conference.
Well, it's done it in the past.
Christmas Day till Saturday.
Oh, people did.
I did it 1 year.
I did it 1 year.
Brad did it the next year, Ann did it last year. I will not be there for that part of the conference.
I'm happy to do it again.
I will not be there either for that part of the conference.
Ann gets a lot of creds tonight.
Yeah.
Ann's gonna walk in with her cape
I
and
have,
see what happens.
I have never done it, and I probably never will. So, because that's, it's something that folks that are really like to be involved with the process.
Well, actually, it's kind of interesting. They, just to draw your attention to, there is a whole lot of resolutions that get voted on, and it guides what the New York State School Board Association chooses to advocate on behalf of districts. So it's actually worthwhile.
Color coded in a room and making rough choices on which way the decisions go.
But we're gonna, in legislative advocacy, we're gonna go through what those resolutions are and
Great.
at least decide as a.
That's fantastic.
team to-
I found it very interesting when I was doing it.
Well, there you go.
But I can't do it this time. One thing is that it does give us a window into how are thinking maybe similar to other districts, or how
Vastly
we may
different.
feel very, very differently,
That's
and
correct.
our concerns and our issues are quite different
Yeah.
than some of the, how many districts are there in this state?
Well,
700?
700.
Well, and that's
Some.
another really
Yeah.
interesting thing, is there's 700 districts in the state roughly, and every district has the same vote.
Yes.
So, but, you know, so there's some districts that with, 200 kids, and some districts with,
Thousands.
the thousands of kids, the size of Rochester or Syracuse, and there is one vote, so.
The conference is interesting because you do become exposed to many districts and many boards that really are not taking on the issues that Ithaca does. But that's why we're Ithaca, and that's why it's always interesting. So it doesn't need to be voted on only by proclamation and acclamation, but Ann, you're the delegate, so
Thank you.
congratulations. Anything else, Dr. Brown? Upcoming dates, we pretty much know when they are.
And the municipal convention, most of the board will be there for those three days, so looking forward.
What week is that again?
24th, 25th, and 26th. October 24th.
Oh, and next week is something else, okay, good. I'm sure it's on my calendar, so good. Well, if we really are good and no one has anything else, then without objection, we are adjourned at 8:29.
You folks need some signatures?
You should like Dr. Brown to sign, Chris.
Oh, is that, I know, I.
Thanks, Rob.
Yes.